Emmy Kennard from Nashville, and I'm sitting down virtually today with Aaron James. He is one of the independent candidates that you will see for U.S. Senate on your ballot November 3rd. Aaron, thank you so much for meeting with us today and for giving us a little bit of information about your candidacy and your platforms.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to thank you all for doing this too. It's so refreshing when groups are proactive to find out about candidates, especially us lowly indies.
Well, speaking on that first, I said that you'll
Right.
be an independent candidate that our voters will see on their ballot, but do you align yourself with any particular independent platform, or are you just sort of a free floater?
No, I'm running entirely not affiliated, and but when people read my platform, they generally say, "Oh, you're a libertarian," right? But I'm not. I'm not a libertarian, and the reason I'm running not affiliated, which the state calls independent, is because I believe that each piece of legislation needs to be considered for its own value and not necessarily based on some prescribed party platform. And besides, I prefer being independent. That way I don't have to have people speaking for me. I don't have to have people trying to put bugs in my ear or convince me to lean one way or the other.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about your platforms. What are your top three priorities if you're elected?
Yes, absolutely. Political reform, education, and the environment. Now, political reform is very critical. Everybody knows about big money, right? And everybody knows about Citizens United, but I didn't know just how entrenched the two-party system was until I started running for Senate as an independent, right? They have all the cards, they have all the decks and all the cards, right? So not only do I want to look at term limits, which is a very big deal. I mean, we have some senators in their 80s, two senators in their 80s, at least six in their 70s, a few that have served for over 20 years. I mean, that's just insane. It's not a career, it's a duty, it's a service, right? So we have to introduce term limits. We have to get big money out of politics, absolutely, without question. We have to have utter and complete campaign finance reform, like they have attempted to do off and on over the years, but the career politicians always undo it. And I'm sorry, but corporations are not people, and corporations do not have freedom of speech. People have rights. Corporations do not have rights. So the entire concept of Citizens United just blows me away. So that's number one, is political reform. Number two is education. And I don't just mean the old let's roll it out and talk about the 3 R's. I mean education that starts in the womb, right? We start with sex education in middle school, making sure that people are prepared to be parents. I come from a long line of people who didn't even fathom the idea of being prepared to be parents, right? And that just has repercussions that last throughout the child's lifetime. We know about the importance of prenatal care to make healthy babies. And then it's starting from day one with early childhood development, okay? So by the time the kid's ready to start school, they're already a well-rounded human being, right? So at that point, education, it's not like they're starting from scratch in the first grade. And now with new technologies, we know that education can be more self-guided and more interactive. So a kid shouldn't have to sit down in a classroom and be told, sit there and be quiet and learn this, memorize these things that we tell you. So when a child is more interested in education, right, then they're obviously going to learn more. State-sponsored associate's degrees free for everybody. State-sponsored colleges Students going to state-sponsored colleges should have zero interest government-sponsored loans. None of this, I'm going to be saddled with debt for the rest of my life, okay? Now, getting back to the first part, the reason we do not have a good education system is because career politicians thrive on an under-motivated and under-stimulated populace. They love having a messed up public education system. They love the idea that only people with money get to go to college, right? That's because the less informed the electorate is, the better off they are. Right? Now, those two things, career politicians and lack of education, are what's contributing to destroying the planet. Okay? We know from a scientific standpoint, objective reality, that we are harming the planet, right? It's not a political issue. Just because Al Gore narrated the documentary doesn't make it a political issue, right? And we need to start addressing it that way. One group asked me last week about TVA's influence on the state economy versus the environment, right? The one thing that politicians have lost sight of is planning in 20-year increments, right? Our politicians, they get up there and they just do these knee-jerk reactions based on whoever's whispering in their ear, or whoever's writing the biggest check, or whoever's pulling the string, or whoever's got a tape of them, with a hooker, whatever the case may be, right? So all three of those things go together. You've got career politicians who do not have the people's interest at heart. They're only interested in their career. You have the puppet masters, I call them, that control those career politicians. Then, because they can only get away with that with a less educated, less motivated populace, then we have a bad education system. And those two things combined are what's contributing to the degradation of the environment. So those are my three things, and they all fit together.